Sometimes life doesn't suddenly become lighter because the world around us changes. More often, life begins to feel lighter at the exact moment something inside us finally grows quiet. It's a strange thing, isn't it? When the storm inside the mind begins to settle. The world outside often seems softer too. The same streets, the same people, the same problems. Yet somehow, everything feels a little different. Almost as if the weight we were carrying has quietly been set down. In today's world, most of us are taught to fix things outside of ourselves. We tell ourselves that life will feel better once we have a better job, or a better relationship, maybe a better city to live in, or even a better version of ourselves. So we keep adjusting things, rearranging pieces of our life the way someone might move furniture around a room. A new plan here, a new goal there, another change, another attempt, all in the hope that one day, when everything is finally in the right place, the room of our life will feel peaceful. But sometimes the problem isn't the room at all. Sometimes the noise we're trying to escape isn't coming from the outside world. It's coming from the mind that lives inside it. There is a small story often shared in quiet meditation halls, a story that isn't really about changing the world, but about a man who spent years trying to run away from it. He believed the answer was somewhere else, somewhere quieter, somewhere simpler, somewhere far away from the noise of ordinary life. So he kept moving, searching, leaving things behind, convinced that peace was waiting somewhere just beyond the next horizon. Until one day, he discovered something unexpected. The place he had been trying to escape from all along was not the world outside him. It was something inside himself. And that realization would change the way he understood everything. In the previous part, we heard about a man who spent years trying to escape the noise of the world, only to realize that what he was running from might actually be inside his own mind. And that realization begins to unfold through a simple story. Once there was a young man who decided to leave the busy city where he had been living. His life felt unbearably heavy. Work drained his energy every day. People around him seemed to irritate him constantly. Even ordinary conversations felt like yet another burden placed on his already tired shoulders. Day after day, the pressure built up inside him, and eventually he thought to himself, if I could just leave all of this behind, maybe peace would finally find me. So he made a decision. He packed a small bag with only the essentials and began traveling far away from the noise of the city. His destination was a quiet mountain monastery, a place known for its silence and simplicity. When he arrived, the environment felt completely different from the life he had left behind. The air was calm. A gentle wind moved through tall bamboo trees, creating a soft rustling sound. Birds sang quietly in the early morning light, as if welcoming the day without hurry. For the first few days, everything felt perfect. There were no traffic jams, no endless meetings, no arguments, no tension, no chaos. For the first time in a long while, the young man believed he had finally found the peace he had been searching for. But slowly, something unexpected began to happen. That familiar restlessness started to return. At first it was subtle, almost unnoticeable. But little by little, the same irritation began creeping back into his mind. He found himself annoyed by the smallest things. The echo of footsteps in the monastery hallway bothered him. The way another monk ate his food too loudly made him uncomfortable. Even the cold mountain mornings began to feel irritating, and soon he realized something unsettling. Even though he had left the city far behind, The noise inside his mind had followed him. One evening, feeling confused and frustrated, he finally decided to approach the old monk who lived at the monastery. The young man spoke honestly. "I left the city because I wanted to find peace," he said. "But my mind is still full of noise. The same restlessness is still here. Why does nothing seem to change?" The old monk listened quietly. Then he gave a gentle smile. Without saying much, the monk walked over to a wooden bucket filled with water. He carefully poured some of the water into a shallow bowl and placed the bowl on the ground between them. Because of the movement, the surface of the water trembled slightly. Small ripples moving across it. The monk pointed at the bowl. "Look closely," he said softly. "Can you see your reflection clearly?" The young man leaned forward and looked down. He shook his head. The water was still moving its surface, too disturbed to reflect anything clearly. The old monk said nothing more. He simply waited. For a few quiet moments, neither of them spoke. Slowly, very slowly, the ripples began to fade, and the water in the bowl started to become perfectly still. A moment earlier, the old monk had simply waited as the ripples in the bowl slowly faded. The water grew calmer and calmer until at last it became completely still. Now, when the young man looked down again, he could see his reflection clearly on the surface. His face appeared perfectly in the quiet water, sharp and undisturbed. The old monk spoke gently. "You tried to change the place," he said. The young man listened carefully, his eyes still on the bowl. "But peace does not come from changing the surroundings of the water." He paused for a moment, letting the young man absorb the image before him. "It comes," the monk continued softly when the water stopped shaking. The words were simple, yet they carried a meaning far deeper than they first appeared. The young man stood there in silence, and in that quiet moment, something inside him shifted. For the first time, he truly understood. All this time, he had believed the city was the storm. The crowded streets, the noise, the endless demands of life. He thought those things were the cause of his restlessness. But standing there, looking into the calm water, he realized something unexpected. The city had never been the storm. His mind had. And that realization changed the direction of his life. From that day forward, the young man stopped trying to escape the world outside him. He stopped searching for the perfect place where nothing would disturb him. Instead, he began learning something far more important. He began learning how to sit quietly with himself. Day by day, he practiced stillness, not by running away from his thoughts, but by watching them gently, allowing them to settle the way the water in the bowl had settled. At first, it wasn't easy. His mind still wandered, still stirred like water touched by wind. But slowly, little by little, something began to change. The storm inside him started to calm. Weeks passed, then months, and eventually the young man made a decision. He returned to the same busy city he had once tried so hard to escape. When he arrived, something surprising happened. The streets looked exactly the same. The noise of traffic filled the air just as before. The same crowds moved through the markets and sidewalks. Nothing outside had changed, and yet the world somehow felt different. Not because the city had become quieter, but because he had. And that quiet change inside him is something many people spend their entire lives searching for, often without realizing it. But what exactly allowed that inner storm to finally settle? And how can anyone learn to create that same calm within their own mind? In the last part of the story, The young man returned to the same noisy city, yet everything felt different, not because the world had changed, but because something inside him had. And perhaps that is a truth many of us slowly discover in our own lives. Sometimes we spend years trying to repair the outside of life. We search for better circumstances, better environments, better situations. We believe that if we could just adjust the right pieces around us, everything would finally fall into place. But often, the outside world quietly reflects what is happening within us. When the heart grows softer, the people around us begin to feel less threatening. Conversations that once felt tense suddenly become lighter. When the mind grows quieter, the problems we face no longer seem as overwhelming as they once did. The same challenges are still there, but they no longer feel like mountains standing in our way. And when something inside us finally settles into peace, the outside world often begins to settle too. So maybe today, nothing around you needs to change right away. Maybe it's not the job that needs to change, not the people in your life, not even the place you live. Maybe what's needed is something much smaller and much quieter. Just a moment of stillness, a slow, deep breath, a brief pause before reacting to something that usually triggers you, a few quiet minutes simply sitting with your own thoughts. It sounds simple, almost too simple. Yet sometimes the smallest pauses create the deepest shifts. Because the most powerful changes in life don't always begin with dramatic decisions or big external transformations. Often they begin in a very silent place, a place most of us overlook, a quiet space within ourselves. And when something changes, there the way we see the entire world can begin to change as well. Have you ever experienced a moment like that in your own life? A moment when something shifted inside you and suddenly everything around you seemed different, even though nothing had actually changed. If this story resonated with you, feel free to share your thoughts in the comments. Your perspective might help someone else reflect on their own journey. And if you enjoy quiet stories like this, stories that invite us to slow down, breathe, and listen more closely to our inner life, consider following the channel. Because sometimes the answers we search for in the noise of the world are waiting patiently in the silence within us.